Hi, so me and Farouk are here for the First Steps takeover of Tune It Over, first Tuesday of every month. We're joined by Euan here, who is an all-round digital physio guru, and we're going to be talking to him to get some tips about how students and new graduates can engage with social media and really get the most out of it for their learning. So yeah, I'll hand you over to Euan so he can give a brief introduction to himself.
Hi everybody, really pleased to be with you all. My name is Euan McComiskie. I am professional advisor for digital and data at the CSP and also professional advisor for Northern Ireland, but using my digital and data head today. I am qualified physiotherapist, qualified back in 2007, started working in digital around about 2012, so nearly 10 years at it, which is a scary thought. But yeah, I am a very proud digital physiotherapist and now get the pleasure of working and using digital and data in a way to improve members' working lives and to improve the services that they offer, and also to improve the outcomes that our patients get by the use of some of the technology.
Great. So I know we have it's great to have you on, Euan, as well for this conversation. We have we have quite a few questions and quite a few topics that we'd be looking to discuss with yourself about today's topic. And from getting to your perspective, I'll let Amelia start off with the questions, and now I'll chime in as we go along.
Brill. So yeah, we got a few sort of outlines of things that we're interested to know, but I know for a lot of students out there, you really want to get involved. You know, you want to get involved in this sort of physio Twitter sphere, but you don't know where to start. What would you say to a student who's finding it difficult to get involved with social media, to, learn from social media and, get involved on Twitter? What would your advice be?
So the first thing is just get involved. Assuming, if you've got access to a smart device, then you've got access to the internet. And if you've got that, then you've got access to social media. So pick the one that's best for you. So for me personally, I like Twitter. That's where I do most of my stuff. And it works well for me in terms of what I want to get out of it. So pick the right platform for you. But just get involved with it. Follow some people that you're interested in. So whether it's their work stuff, it can be some personal stuff too. That's totally fine, and start to follow them, start to pick up tips and learn from there. But the biggest thing is just getting out there and getting involved. And early, don't be worried about followers. Don't be seeking followers by doing outrageous things. You're not necessarily going to be a social media influencer. You're there to learn stuff, right? So get out there, and that's the best thing about social media. It's a worldwide instant conversation. And if you're in that, then you're learning stuff. If you're not, you're not. So get involved would be my first thing. We do have to say as well, I'm here as a CSP employee. I'd be not doing my duty if I didn't talk a little bit about standards. So forgive me. We'll get out the way early on. But yeah, the CSP has some social media guidance for CSP members. I'd encourage you to go and have a look at that. We updated it. It had been 2014. We updated it a couple of years back to bring it up.
I checked it out. It's really good. Like I was like, is it going to be some rules or like, don't do this, don't do that? No. But it's actually like a tool book for social media. So I'm going to post that on Twitter afterwards. Yeah,
definitely use it. It's just a bit of guidance. It's guidelines rather than tramlines, right? So here's how you might want to think about doing things, and thinking about the right platform is one of the critical messages. We also have, as HCPC registrants, then we're all, expected to maintain, standards of professionalism all the time. That includes on social media. It's no different. How I like to describe that is, you always have to be, you don't always have to be professional on social media, but you can never be unprofessional on social media. So it's totally cool, as long as people are happy with it, to print, to put stuff up about, I don't know, what you're doing at the weekend, or your kids or your dog or your cat, or, here's me out walking in the sunshine or whatever. That's totally cool. Put that stuff out there. Physios are allowed to have a life. But make sure you're not being unprofessional as you're doing it. So let me give you an example. I'm going to be playing golf with my dad on Friday night. Really looking forward to it. First time in far too long. So if I beat my dad at golf, it's totally fine to put up, played golf with my dad. Here's a picture of us on the green or whatever else. Totally fine. if I lose to my dad by missing a silly putt on the 18th, I'm not going to tweet about the language that I used when I missed that putt, because that would be unprofessional, right? So just think about what you're doing. And then the other thing is the busy bus analogy. So think about what you're saying before you say it on social media. That's life guidance, right? That's not CSP stuff. It's life guidance. And if you wouldn't say it on a busy bus, don't say it on social media. Is it helpful? Is it kind? Are the two critical things to think about. And if it's not, put your phone down, take a breath, think about it, and come back with something constructive. Let's not get sucked into that can be really easy things. So it's really important that we maintain our professionalism standards, but it's not a difficult thing to do. It's just about being a good person, right? And sharing a little bit of your non-physiotherapy life is totally fine, totally acceptable.
Yeah.
But
keep it. Don't lapse into that unprofessional way.
I love the busy bus analogy. I think that's a great one. Farouk, have you got any advice to like new people, physios or new grads that are new to Twitter and don't know how to interact? What would your top tips be?
So I was going to say I really like Euan's point on, I think sometimes people think that the worry is that the negative side of places like Twitter is people think that as soon as you get on Twitter, you've checked out of civilization, and then you can say anything without any repercussions or without any, and then you're worried about, can I say this because I got some people from work following me, or do I want to say this because of I got my boss, or I got these type of things. And I think ultimately you shouldn't be too worried if you're not saying things that are intentionally, detrimental or not helpful, or if you're cracking jokes, the fair game jokes that you could crack around or say around in the office, it shouldn't be an issue saying it on Twitter as well, as long as they're not harmful. But my advice, going back to what the question was, when you're starting something, I always use myself as an example, not because I'm great or anything, but just because I did something, thanks Amelia, about last year that was not what I was known for doing, which was I started my podcast, I started tweeting more, I started engaging, I reached out to Jack, I reached out to First Steps, just doing things that are outside the things I was doing before, because I wasn't that active on social media. This time, probably a bit earlier, a few months back, this time last year, and just doing things that made me start thinking, worrying a bit and thinking, but I still did it at the end of the day. And a year down the line, I could say that one of the best choices I had, was starting a podcast about health, joining First Steps, being involved in Physio Matters and Physio Twitter and things like this, and just engaging, because I think ultimately I've learned a lot, both clinical and non-clinical, that you can learn from Twitter and just being engaged in the community. Because at the end of the day, I think it's a fairly small community. Somehow it is a small community. I don't know how, because everyone seems to know everyone else. Jack, this person, and Jack's already mentioned, I think Jack made a comment about you being brilliant and make a comment on glasses. Everyone knows each other well, and it's great for both, again, clinical and non-clinical opportunities. A great way to find these extra things, extra educational content, or someone might post out, there's a role available here, and then you might say, that fits for me. And I think not worrying too much about followers, something that, obviously growing, I think I would say in the coming generation, I feel like I don't know if I count myself, I think myself in that class is worrying about followers and things like this, and just worry about the learning experience and don't bother too much about the other stuff, and you'll be good overall.
Yeah. I was also thinking, like, sometimes I feel nervous to share an opinion about physiotherapy or about a certain area of physiotherapy if I know it's going to, get a bit of backlash or be a bit different to how other people are thinking. I don't know if you've got any advice about that, Euan, or how to approach that. Or
again, think about, is it helpful? Is it kind? It's Twitter is a place where we can reach out and we can have that conversation, right? So is everybody going to agree? No, they're not. And that's totally fine as long as we do it in the right way. So you might put something up and I might disagree with it. And that's fine. Do that's absolutely fine, because we'd have that conversation in person. But it's about the way that you do that. And that's where the critical bit is. So yeah, the other thing with social media as well, and Farouk was saying it as well, you lean in and you go into this place of you don't know everything, you learn things up as you go along. So opinions can change, right? Something that I thought yesterday might not be the same, next week, and that's a fine place as well. As long as we allow each other that space to be able to think, and not being, vindictive or overly critical of people because they hold a different opinion. Social media can be a thing as well. It can be a bit of an echo chamber at times as well. So a lot of the people that I would, engage with over social media through different bits of my life are similar to me. So they're likely to be a physiotherapist. They're likely to be from the UK or practicing in the UK. So think about other bits as well, and that my view through Twitter isn't everything that's going on in the world, right? So if we have to be open to the fact that social media at times can be a bit of an echo chamber. So similar people sharing similar ideas, and we just need to be aware of that, conscious of it, and then think about ways that we can try and learn more about a subject that we're interested in. But yeah, so you're saying people don't always have to agree, and that's totally fine. In physiotherapy, CSP, we've got 60,000 members. I would be lucky to find one thing that they all agree on completely. We've all got different opinions about things, and that's fine. It's about how we share that learning. And like Farouk was saying, the opportunities that social media can throw up as well, whether it's new jobs or whether it's a webinar that's coming up, or whether it's about a paper that somebody's just published, or a study that someone's doing that you want to get involved in, or whatever it is, or a nice restaurant to go out and eat at, all those kind of things. It's cool to share those things, and and we can all benefit from it. So I always say, lean into that place to learn some new stuff, and you're going to benefit from it. And then when you're comfortable and when you're happy with it, start to share things into that conversation as well, and get involved in it. It might take a bit of practice, but so does everything, right? And that's, I would say, for students or for new grads, lean into it, start to learn from people who are more comfortable, and then find your own way through it.
I like that. Is it Syed or Saeed has just posted in the chat asking about tips for students using social media to help find jobs and things like that. But I was just wondering, as well as that, more generally, from your experience, what would be your top tips on ways you could use social media to learn or help you in your career?
So horses for courses, right? So, are you going to find the job of your dreams on Insta? Probably not. Are you going to find it via LinkedIn or via Twitter? More likely. So again, think about what you want to use your social media for. Think about, what the benefits for me are, and what I can get out of it, or what you're going to use your social media for. So if you're using your social media to recruit staff, then you want to be able to make sure that it's getting to the right audience in the right way. So, think about it that way. So yeah, maybe something like LinkedIn or Twitter might be better for finding a job. But don't rule out Insta, because it can bring lots of other things that you can learn from as well, or Facebook or whatever else. So yeah, I would say think about what you're going to use it for and choose a platform that suits for that. And grow your network as well, so that you're more likely to hear about new opportunities, if it's jobs, if it's learning courses or whatever else. Lean into that. Am I freezing? Can you guys hear me okay?
Oh, no, you're fine.
You're fine now. Sorry, the joys of Wi-Fi. Yeah, so lean into that place, learn about it, and lost my train of thought slightly. Yeah, so to go into that place, and you're going to find out, and that's the thing about broadening your network. That's where I was going to. Yeah, follow people that you're interested in and have the similar interests, or are places that you want to get to, and that's where you can start to get those opportunities. So give people a follow. And that's where you're going to start to get involved in those conversations that you might have been outside if you weren't involved with social media.
I know from a personal perspective. Oh, sorry.
Carry on, Amelia. I'll let you go first.
I know from a personal perspective, especially during the pandemic, I found Twitter so useful for keeping up to date with the latest information, obviously from reliable sources, but in terms of physiotherapy and how things were developing, it gave me the latest up-to-date news on perhaps whether it's from the CSP or whether it's from other students being like, this is how my placement's going, this is how my placement's been adapted. And I found it really useful. It's given me a lot more opportunities, and it also led to like a digital placement, which I wouldn't have got if I wasn't involved in Twitter and things like that. And being involved in First Steps I found really useful, like going to Therapy Live and lots of different events. Excited for Therapy Live next week as well. But yeah, just all sorts of opportunities. I found it really useful. And I like how like people are questioning like the evidence around physiotherapy, and I feel like they're trying to make it better, which I really appreciate it, to have like so many like engaged people talking about physiotherapy. So from a personal perspective, I found it really useful. I don't know about you, Farouk.
Yeah, I think, personally, it's overall, that's what I want to get to is very useful, I think. And once it's the mindset you come into, I think it's the mindset you come into it with, or what you're trying to achieve, that ultimately you'll get out of it eventually. Now, and if you're talking about the different social media apps that are out there, each of them have their own unique selling point, especially regarding to physio. As you said, Instagram, I found that Instagram and physiotherapy community are not the best friends in the terms of you'll be more active. People are more active a lot on Twitter than Instagram. So if you're looking to get, and it's, to be fair, I think it's the mode of which you can get the information. People find it a lot easier to tweet things than start making a whole picture and videos and stuff like that. So you find more of the community, but there is a community there as well on Instagram, but it's more pronounced on Twitter. And if you're going for LinkedIn, that's where you really get those jobs. You can find a lot better job-wise opportunity, because Twitter is also every once in a while someone may say, oh yeah, in their trust, they're hiring. So it's what particularly you want to get out of it. I think those are the major three. And Facebook, I know, is also another one where you can build that community for your own specific audience a lot easier. I know here Physio Matters, we use Facebook for specific things like that. So it's finding which one you want to get out of it, and what you particularly want to do with it. But ultimately, as you said, I think you said something important. It can be an echo chamber in a sense where you have the same people. And I think what intimidates a lot of people, what intimidated me personally, was when you're coming on and you're seeing someone call the big names of people saying the same thing, and you're starting to question a lot of your own thoughts about. Because you come out of uni and you get taught a lot of these things from university, and then you go on Twitter and you see a lot of people bashing what you just learned in university, spent 3 years, and they're questioning all these things, and they're saying, well, this is not really useful. This static stretching that they taught us in university is not really useful. This mode of treatment is not useful. And then you're in a weird place where you want to come out and speak on and say, well, I know this, I think I this, but you're seeing these people who have years of experience talking about this in a negative manner, and you might get scared to even put out a tweet. So I think, for the most part, there is a level of toxicity in all environments, but for the most part, if you put out something that's unpopular, they're not going to bash you. I remember there was a child with the thread with Mobola who was about stretching, and someone else who was pro stretching had a thought, and they just had a civil discussion on it on Twitter, and you'd be looking at the thread replies, and you see, okay, this was his points, bringing out his study, and it wasn't necessarily, oh, you're 100% wrong, how can you be doing this, you're the worst physio since ever. It's a constructive conversation which both were having, and sometimes you just have to have that, although, yeah, you have to be honest, you have to be ready for some trolling, which is natural with internet, but on the overall landscape, and even when you get trolled, there'll be people who will call it out very quickly, when it's unnecessary. If you're a new grad and you're getting, bashed on by someone who's had multiple years of practice, it's a bit like, why are you doing this? And no one's going to really be supporting them. But it's sometimes the fear you have, I think a lot of people have, I definitely had this, is reasonable. But once you get out and you start doing things, you realize, okay, it's actually not as bad as you thought. But you'll never get to that point if you never even started trying to do if you never started trying to tweet or reaching out to different people. And the worst case scenario, and I think the last thing I'll keep before I hand it back to you guys, is when you send out DMs to people. I mean, on my podcast, Rookcell podcast, I get people on, different people, but I just send out DMs to people, and I'll send out a message. A lot of people say yes, some people say no, some people I don't hear back from, but I'm not going to harbor on the fact that, 2 people I didn't get back, but I did hear back responses from some other people, which at the end of the day, some people are more busy than the others, but generally, I was surprised to find that a lot of people are quite, I never had a podcast episode. No one knew who I was. And I just reached out to people and said, oh, do you mind being on my podcast? And they say, yeah, sure, they would. And the niceness of the human nature would be surprising to a lot of people when you find out when you're only hearing some negative things about Twitter and everything day in, day out, and you find a surprise that people are actually nice people, the same way you might meet nice people in real life. It's just the hand that changes it.
Totally agree with you, Farouk. You know, there are not nice people saying not nice things all over the show, right? And if you want to give that airtime and if you want to listen into that stuff, then fine. I don't want to hear that stuff. Do you know, I want to hear good stories. I want to learn things. Do you know, I want to make my brain work. I want to make me think about things. But like you said about that conversation where people have a different viewpoint, but they have a constructive conversation about it. That's the kind of stuff that I want to hear. Another thing about social media, it opens up doors, right? So I mean, Jack and I have met once, I think, in person. We shared a stage at a conference somewhere back when we were allowed to do those kind of things. But would I have met Jack in person in real life if it wasn't for social media and following the stuff that he's doing and about Therapy Live and all the other things? Possibly not. Do you know, and I always think, you're going to get access to different people in different ways through social media, so you might as well use it. What you brought up a really important point, Farouk, and I think, again, we do need to take a bit of a health check with social media sometimes. And Amelia, you said it, during lockdown, it's great to pick up all this information and to learn it and to synthesize it all into stuff that we can use, to improve our practice and blah, blah, blah. But sometimes you need to switch off. And it's really critical that you switch off and then you switch off again. So sometimes, it's about switching off your devices at the end of the day, or switching off and, leaving the hospital or the health centre or whatever else, leave the clinic, and then you need to switch off and up here as well. And that includes social media, because it can be toxic and it can overtake our personal lives. And whatever you've got going on in your personal life, you don't need work and social media absorbing all of that stuff or getting too involved in it. So sometimes put the phone down, switch off, knock your Wi-Fi off, go for a walk, do what you need to do, get your own headspace, because that's really critically important. I think the danger sometimes with social media is it's too easy to check that in your bed just before you go to sleep, or first thing when you wake up in the morning, and then when you're on the commute into work or you're doing whatever. So sometimes it's really important just to take that step back from it as well. It's a really healthy place to be, but we need to be able to step back from that as well. We cannot be on call 24/7. So have a bit of a health check with your social media as well. It's a massively positive tool if we use it right, but if we use it wrong, it can start to just move into something that's not quite as positive an influence.
Absolutely.
So true. So wise.
So wise. It's not like me.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say it's a really good point of the stepping back occasionally and not be. Sometimes you don't want to be too far tethered from reality, where you don't actually know what's happening in the real world, and you're just overly focused, because it is a habit that I think countless of studies have shown. Count the percentage of people who wake up and first thing do is check the phone. Last thing you do, check your phone. You're on it a lot of the time, and obviously for people like ourselves, which a good part of even our job and the extracurricular jobs we do is to be online. I make podcasts, I help video masters. Like Amelia and I, we all do all these things online as well. But every once in a while, Amelia will be a testament to that, where I'll be able to be reached for a brief period of time, and it's not because I'm avoiding Amelia, just because I'm not on for a while. I think this whole weekend I've been moving and stuff like that, and I just said, I don't need to be. I don't know what's happening for a couple of days, and that's okay. You come back, you haven't missed the whole world. You feel like you missed everything, but you pick up right where you left off. Or sometimes you just need to let your brain rest for being bombarded with screens and multiple things at the same time. As healthy as it can also be a double-edged sword with anything really. If you don't know how to use it or you misuse it, you can get really absorbed into it overly. And as physios, we know this type of things. If you're in one position for too long, it's not great for your posture. If you're using your screen too much, it's not great. Anything that is you're doing something extremely repetitive in not a great position is not good for your health overall, both mentally and physically. So I think that's a great point. Yeah, on the other really.
I love how you brought it back to a physio analogy. Major physio points there, Farouk. Before we bring this conversation to a close, because conscious of time, but I want to know, like, from you guys, what you would like to see more of going forwards in the future of, how physiotherapy uses social media in the digital space. We'll go to you, Euan.
So I want to see students seeing it as a tool to have conversations, to learn things. I think that's massively positive. What I'd also like to see is thinking about our services and how our services can use social media. So at Physio UK here, insert plug here, but Physio UK this year be hearing from a service in Scotland run by a chap I know fairly well, Stuart Buchan, and what they use is use Facebook to get information out there to their service users. So they're able to track their referral activity and to see peaks and troughs in referrals, and then use that to be able to steer what they're sharing with their group. So we've seen loads of a real peak in knee injuries. So here's some stuff that you can do if you're waiting to see us around about that. Or usually at this time of year we see lots of slip, trips and falls. People out and about in the bad weather. So think about the right footwear to wear and make sure you're not having those slips and trips. So you can be a little bit preventative as well as reactive to some of that. And so it's just about starting to use social media in a really good way to access and have those conversations that we want to be having. So like say Stuart and his service use Facebook because that's where a lot of their community were, and they use it to influence. So just starting to think about it at a personal level, but also at a service level. What can we be using social media for to try and share the messages that we want to do with our patients, with the public, or with our fellow physiotherapists? So think about what you want to achieve out of social media, and then the best platform that you're going to be able to use to achieve the outcomes that you want to do, and then measure it, right? Because don't keep doing something if it doesn't work. So we want to get some evaluation data, and we will be able to prove that we're doing a really good job with this. And if we're not, we can go back, we can improve it, we can go again. So thinking about, as part of a constant improvement cycle, and social media can be a vehicle to try and get those messages out there. So don't just keep doing the same thing over and over again. Think about doing it a wee bit better each time.
Absolutely, that's great. I think those are great points as well. I think I like the one where you're getting more organizations and more people involved in social media just generally. I mean, from a student perspective, universities, I know now they're more trying to get more involved in Twitter, more involved in social media. You're having more university societies being more active, which is great. You want to see more of them so they can induct while you're in university into all these, all the good people to follow, the good things to look out for. Because I realized most of my things about physio Twitter when I was basically finished already at third year, end of year, which would have been great to have some of those things while I was in first year. I think that's one of the things we do at First Steps, is trying to make it more for every level. So if universities and organizations can encourage people when you're coming into the course, we're also active on Twitter, we're also active on social media here, you can also follow us, and then get people more involved from that first year. A lot of people, as we just recently got some new people in First Steps that are from first year, second year, third year, and all alike. That's the type of thing we love to see. And I think the more as we've been kind of forced in an almost essence due to the pandemic, forcing more people online one way or the other, so more people are getting involved. So I think naturally over the next few years we'll see more of a resurgence of more people getting involved and active in communities from first years and students, and that'll be great to see going forward.
Yeah, so thank you for everyone who's joined us for our chat this lunchtime. If you want to follow us on social media, we're at PM First Steps. You can also check out Euan and the great work he's doing in the digital space. Thank you. We're honoured to have you as our guest today. And we're excited for Therapy Live coming up next week. So if you haven't already got your ticket online, would recommend that. And we'll be back for our next takeover of Chewing It Over, first Tuesday of the month.
Thanks very much for having me as well, Amelia and Farouk. Really great to be here, and I look forward to Therapy Live too, and tuning in on social media and seeing all the good stuff that comes from it.
Brilliant.
All right, take care.